Good evening, everyone. Welcome to a completely unplanned ambush stream, as I am wont to do at times. This is going to be probably one of my least constructed streams, because it was entirely on the spur of the moment, because I'm awake, and I'm bored, and I'm coming down off of a little bit of a creative high, I guess. I'll talk about that in a minute. But who's joining me for this ambush stream at this time of night on this day of the week? Corey Suzuki, random American. Here, actually, you know what? I should do this more often. I don't do it very often, but I should do it more often. Corey Suzuki, you're on the screen. Random American, hello. Poker Pierce, hello. Noah Asensio, hello. Decode, hello. Nathan Willie, hello. Ebony Williams, hello. Okie Native, hello. Emperor W.R. Costin, hello. Ercole Di Stefano, hello. Angelverse, hello. Keldrig, hello. And that's everybody I see so far. If other people pop in, I will do my best to give you all a hello. Real Wade Nation Gaming Clips, hello. Pardon me for my stumbling over the name. The concatenated words always throw me off just a smidge. Oh boy, I guess I'll be doing this for a few more minutes. Simon Willikins, hello. Dagger 3K, hello. Yeah, so what's going on? What's new and exciting in the wonderful world of worlds on a Friday? Well, thankfully, my work today was relatively brief and easy, so I was able to take a half day and be just a lazy bones for most of the day, except I wasn't entirely lazy. I did some productive things. One of the productive things I did, if you can call it productive, is I can't say I finished it, but I got to a place where I felt like I'd completed something. I'm a nerd, if you didn't know. And some of you who follow me on Twitter might already know this because I tweeted it out about a half hour ago or whatever. I spent a good portion of my wasted youth on Vampire the Masquerade in one way, shape, or form. And I've always been a fan of vampires as a concept and everything. As some of you may also know from my reading with my friend Leonora, Interview with the Vampire recently. Well, as well, in that same time frame, I started replaying a computer game that came out, good gravy, I guess it's about 5 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, just called Vampire or Vampire, V-A-M-P-Y-R. It's a very stylish sort of storytelling, role-playing game about, well, playing a vampire. And I really like the setting. I really like the lore around it. The game itself has some mechanical inconsistencies, and it's not perfect or nothing, but I like the setting. It's set in like Victorian London, or I guess maybe it's the latter stages of Victorian London. Anyway, so as a piece of nerdery, I decided, for no particular reason, to try to adapt setting information from that game into a format similar to the tabletop role-playing game version of Vampire the Masquerade, coming up with little profiles of the various bloodlines and factions and powers, rules, and all types of stuff. Anyway, that was a sort of art project using my rudimentary Photoshop skills, and I completed a decent version of that today. It's 23 pages, but that's also counting a cover and a introductory page. And I posted that up on, was it Flip something, some PDF hosting site, HTML Flip or something, that can now be viewed by people for stuff and things. And so, anyway, if you're really curious, you can find that posted onto my Twitter feed, and I'll probably post it elsewhere on the Discord at some point just for reference purposes. That's all to say that I spent a good portion of my day in a creative fervor. It might not be everybody's cup of tea, but it was certainly mine, and I did a bunch of stuff. And so finishing that, I was like, well, I'm on sort of a weird energetic high, and I'm not sleepy. So that being the case, I was like, well, why not stream? Why not? Jedi Ghost Bear, hello. Demon Man 7, hello. Sabian 187, hello. All the sevens are here. So yeah, what's going on in the world? I do have a podcast, video, audio thing to listen to at some point if nothing else comes up. But I thought I'd just sort of hang out for a bit and talk to y'all and kill some time before it was sleepy time. I don't know. Random American, sadly, I am sleepy. Well, don't be sad. Go sleepy. Go get sleepy. Sleepy is good. This will be here when you get back. These things are recorded and saved in perpetuity until YouTube decides to shut me down for some reason. So go get sleepy, Random. And Liesel7, good evening. Let's see. Urkelay de Stefano, anyone watch What We Do in the Shadows? Best vampire show ever. I have heard of it. I know. I've seen clips of it. I've never watched it. I don't know. I like my vampires relatively serious. I don't know. Comedies and vampires. There's a time and a place. There's a time and a place, but not really. I like my vampires near dark, let's say. If you get that reference, you like vampire movies. What can I tell you? Let's see. Have I tried decatenated words? Well, it takes more chemicals and effort to decatenate words. So I hear. Simon Wilkins, might as well listen to this because text-to-speech isn't working. Well, yeah, whatever floats your boat, I suppose. Random, but I can't snark after the fact. Well, there's always the comment section and putting in timestamps. So somebody coming along after the fact can, take advantage of your wit and wisdom at the exact point at which it would have been perfect to say. Aha, see? There you go. But, yeah, so anyway, I'm just energized and awake, and yeah. So there's a couple of news stories that I've been sent by people that I might share in short order just because I find them morbidly curious. Mostly it's true crime stuff. I got a lot of true crime stuff coming my way lately. Speaking of which, I can't mention who or what yet because it's not confirmed, but I have two different true crime content creators on the short time frame of maybe doing a show with me. And I say that in sort of general terms because at least one of them is prepping quite fervently for the Crime Con. There's a yearly Crime Con. This time it's taking place in Orlando, Florida, I think, at the end of next month. But all the preparation for packing and get materials ready and all the coordination and everything is being done by the professionals early on. And so that's gumming up the works as far as trying to set a schedule. But the two people I am talking to currently to try to arrange something, one just started their YouTube channel recently, but have been doing a podcast for quite a while. And the other one has been on YouTube for a while, but is still in that sort of early stage where they've just kind of they're kind of the mid-range of experience as far as I can tell making YouTube videos. I don't know. That's my estimate. Either way, I enjoy both of their stuffs. I wish I could be more specific, but I don't want to write checks I can't cash until I get something scheduled. But I will let you know that I am behind the scenes trying to make a better, more episodes of my Living on Borrowed Crime series because I really am excited about it. And I really do like talking to people from this genre. It's just real life, personal foibles, and all types of other scheduling things keep mucking up the work. So there you go on that as far as a channel update. Let's see. Anything else before I jump into this? Oh, Dixie Rose 63. Hello. Anybody else I missed in the meantime? I don't see you. So, okay. Well, anyway, we can talk about other stuff later if anything comes up. But yeah, so I have this podcast-ish thingy from the Wall Street Journal. The high and mighty Wall Street Journal. And this came out, I think, just a couple of days ago, maybe as far as a week ago. I'm not sure. But the title is Democratic Attorneys General Defend Corporate Diversity Policies. Sure. Why not? Let's see. I wasn't roboting there, was I? See, I forgot that I had a Firefox window open, and seemingly every time I have a different browser open while I'm doing this, my audio gets completely schmucked. Did you guys hear anything off base as far as quality? Because I just closed it. No roboting? Okay, good. Good, because I get worried about that. Like, I can't hear myself being broadcast, so I don't know if anything's going wrong until somebody else tells me, and I hate that. That's why I kind of would like to have a more consistent, like, co-host or something, maybe. I don't know. Faithless, good evening. Chicago Mike, good evening. Miranda Stone, good evening. Yes, Miranda and I have had some live police chase adventures on Discord the last couple of days. I was chatting with her the other day, and like suddenly I saw a link for a live police chase. I was like, "Ooh, let's watch this!" And so we just sat there for like an hour watching this ridiculous standoff in a truck in LA or something. And it was kind of anticlimactic, but it was all very tense because it was all like gunshots and SWAT team vans and everything. A lot of those happening down in LA lately. But anyway, let's take a look at, it's more of a listen thing, so there's no video to it per se, to this Wall Street Journal podcast. It's about 12 minutes long, talking about how several Democratic attorney generals are defending corporate DEI policies post affirmative action. So, yeah, and after this, I got some news stories or something. We'll see. Oh, very, very serious music.
From the opinion pages of the Wall Street Journal, This is Potomac Watch.
21 Democratic attorneys general demand continued corporate diversity and equity policies from the Fortune 100 after 13 Republican attorneys general suggested that such policies might be illegal.
Might be illegal? This is the thing, and I know I'm going to be a broken record for those of you who are veterans to the channel, but when were they ever legal in the first place? Because here's the thing, and I've been thinking about this a lot on Reflex for other reasons. When I read those two Supreme Court decisions from 1979 and 1987 that talked about affirmative action programs in the workplace, while they did effectively give an out to companies to perform things like DEI initiatives without necessarily tempting fate with Title VII from the Civil Rights Act, there are also conditions in there that corporate DEI programs, I believe for the most part, have completely jumped over the line. And that's specifically, they mentioned that these programs in those decisions had to be temporary, and as well, they could not use quotas. And so in opposition to that, most corporate DEI programs have been going on for years and years and years. And every time they put out a report talking about percentages and 25% by 2025 or 30% by 2023 or whatever it is, they've already gone past the line as far as I can tell. So how these things were ever considered legal, I don't know. But it's not as if the decision on affirmative action suddenly drew a line and said, well, anything that happens after this is now liable, because affirmative action never had anything to do with private business. And that's the weird, legal, moral, alchemy that's been going on for years now.
Welcome. I'm Kyle Peterson with the Wall Street Journal.
Hi,
we
Kyle.
are joined today by my colleagues, columnist Alicia Finley and editorial board member Colin Levy. Our business is between a rock and a hard place now in the wake of the Supreme Court's decision banning racial preferences in college admissions.
They are. They are, because the argument for diversity in colleges was what was on trial effectively with that decision. And since the argument for diversity could not justify the use of race as a deciding factor or one element of many in decisions of admissions, the problem for corporate diversity programs is that the argument for diversity does not justify racial discrimination, and racial discrimination is on the exact same legal footing in Title VII as gender, as orientation, as ethnicity, as religion, and so on. So if it doesn't count in colleges under Title VI, it certainly doesn't count under Title VII and for everything else that applies under Title VII. But then again, as I've said, they should have been under that legal liability and risk this entire time, yet somehow they've just gotten away with it.
It certainly seems that way. This latest letter from 21 Democratic AGs came last week. I will read a portion of it. It says...
Oh, wait, before we get to that, real quick, a couple more hellos here. Cognos, hey! A guy in his room, hi-oh! And let's see. It says, my company put out a plan for diversity goals with percentages and also made sure to say these are not quotas. Yeah, well, yeah, okay. 6 of one thing, half a dozen of the other, right? And Derek LaRue, holy cats, what are you doing up this late? What are you doing up this late? Well, obviously listening to me for some reason, but thank you so much again, as always, for your continued generosity and support. Hope you're having a good Friday evening. Hope this entertains you in some way, shape, or form. And I earn your generosity. Thank you. Scanner Daffley also, happy Friday and good evening. All right, so what was the thing in the stuff? Let me back up a little bit.
Last week, I will read a portion of it. It says, the letter you received from the 13 state attorneys general, meaning those Republicans, is intended to intimidate you into rolling back the progress many of you have made. We write to reassure you that corporate efforts to recruit diverse workforces and create inclusive work environments are legal and reduce corporate risk for claims of discrimination. In fact, businesses should double down on diversity-focused programs because there is still much more work to be done.
Okay. Cite the legal cover for them. I mean, if you have the attorneys general from several different states encouraging businesses to continue with their programs because they are legal, then, and I mean this sincerely because, you know, I know enough legal information, just enough to be dangerous. So if there is something beyond those 2 Supreme Court decisions, which to me, the allowances for workplace affirmative action seem awfully tenuous. And when put up against what little I know about DEI programs, seem like they've already crossed the line several times. If there's something else that gives legal cover to these programs, I hope that they mention it.
Alicia, can you give us a sense of what is the legal argument that these Democratic AGs are making in contrast to the one that was made earlier by Republican AGs?
Yes.
Well, they argue that a lot of these policies that Fortune 100 companies and actually other businesses use are really racially neutral, that they actually don't advantage any race over another.
Horse hockey. Ask anybody who runs one of these diversity programs, define a diverse candidate. Listen to any of their promotional material. Read any of their press releases. Listen to the consultants they are hiring. That is utter nonsense.
And they actually, cite examples such as expanded recruiting for minorities on college campuses, as well as mentorships that are available and open to everyone of all races. And in principle, they're right. These examples that they cite are actually, don't violate Equal Protection Clause or Title VII of the Civil Rights Act any more than similar efforts on college campuses or would be to, for instance, to recruit high school students at more diverse high schools.
Yeah, the outreach portion of it, the recruitment portion of it, is probably the most legally safe. If you put it all the way at the front, you're probably avoiding a lot of problems legally. Ethically, morally, principally, it might be a little gray area depending on how you're doing it and so on. But yeah, it really comes down to the point of decision. Who do you let in and why?
Or to, increase mentorship opportunities at schools for, Black or Hispanic kids. Those practices in themselves may not be illegal or unconstitutional.
May not be? Okay, well, again, if you're offering programs and activities and opportunities to people at school on the basis of their race, you're already running up against not only Title VI, but the Education Amendments of 1976 as well, possibly. All depends on how you're doing it. I've run into this before on my channel and other things. So, yeah, may not be. You're right, it may not be. A couple more hellos here. Nobody Hey, what's up? How's it going? Hoko 2025. How goes it? And JK. How's it going? Okay, racist. Who me? I'm not. I swear, I took a test sometime, I think.
The rub here is that a lot of the practices the Republicans are really targeting are really hiring quotas or contracting quotas.
Yes.
And they include a link to a CNBC article that goes through a couple dozen companies and what their pledges and diversity pledges. And a lot of these are really racial balancing in disguise.
Racial balancing in disguise. Really? So they're just what? They're like moral Decepticons or something? What? Okay. I can't tell yet. Is our speaker trying to do apologia for obvious? I'll be nice and say obvious tests against federal law.
And Colin, as we discussed on last week's podcast about this, taking on the argument from the Republican attorneys general, it's true that the Supreme Court's decision in the Harvard affirmative action racial preferences case was about college admissions and universities that take federal funding, even if they are private schools. But it seems to be having much broader effects that are being recognized. And part of that has to do with these civil rights laws, Title VI that bans discrimination in programs with federal funding, Title VII that bans employment discrimination.
Yes, and why? Why? And by the way, like I say, affirmative action was never a legal defense against Title VII. Okay, the existence and the legality, as tenuous as it was, of affirmative action in colleges never had anything to do with Title VII or employment, and never legally provided any cover against Title VII in employment. Which is why it's just continually bizarre to me that somehow all of the sudden, but I suppose now after affirmative action, there's nowhere to hide legally when it comes to the argument to diversity in justifying discrimination.
That the Republican AGs are saying are generally read in harmony.
Right, that's right. And that's what Justice Gorsuch said in his concurrence. He said, look, a lot of the portions of this law that we've just considered also are mirrored in the law, Title VII, that governs corporations. And I think it's going to be a really interesting to see the way this plays out, Kyle. I think there's no question that corporations are between a rock and a hard place here. I thought it was particularly funny in the letter that the Democratic AGs said that they thought the Republican AGs were trying to intimidate corporations into not using diversity metrics, because intimidating corporations is an art that Democrats have been really perfecting for the last decade, right? You think about the way every progressive group under the sun has moved against corporations on their preferred issues,
Good point. Very good point. But the Republicans don't have to intimidate corporations. The corporations already know. As we've seen from previous articles and previous reports, both before and after the decision for affirmative action, companies are scrambling internally trying to figure out, how do we avoid any legal liability going forward? How can we mitigate the threat to us? The problem that they're in, and this is, again, I am not a lawyer. This is all, layman's interpretation. The problem that the companies are in, like I said, it's not as if something that was never defined as legal or illegal was suddenly defined by the court. And you could draw a line to a date and say, prior to this date, if you were doing this thing, you're probably in safe territory. But if you do anything like this after this date, then you're testing the waters. That's never been the case with what DEI has been up against Title VII. Title VII has always been there, and affirmative action was never a legal cover. So this is where the companies are in. This is the situation they're in right now. If they double down on this, they are doubling down on something that has always been legally suspect at best, but certainly after the affirmative action decision has very, very few places to hide when it comes to trying to justify their actions with the diversity argument. If they backtrack, or if they outright eliminate their DEI practices in some way, or make anything that looks like an apology or a confession of wrongdoing, then they are opening themselves up to years and years worth of possible class action suits against them for discrimination. Because either these DEI programs were always legal or they were never legal. either their practices fell within the law and the Civil Rights Act, or they didn't. And so they really don't have a way to get out of it. There's no safe route now, and they don't know what to do. And it's hilarious. I cannot help but take a certain level of schadenfreude from the entire situation these companies are finding themselves in. It's just amazing. And again, that is just my layman's assessment of the circumstances. I am curious to hear if our experts here go anywhere near that.
Expecting them to take up chosen causes, from the environment to the demand that pension funds are invested in ESG accounts, or, obviously these racial issues that we're talking about. That kind of virtue signaling has been a problem on a basic level, because when corporations make these decisions based on politics instead of based on merit or excellence, it affects their output, it affects their corporate culture. And there's no question that the left has created a general environment where, these companies lay out diversity metrics or vie to be visible sponsors of certain environmental or politically pleasing causes, because they were hoping it was going to protect them from volatility in their business, or boycotts or other disruptions.
Or being accused of being racist or sexist or something else. Yeah. Fear of being called bad names, fear of damage to the brand or their image or whatever, drove these companies, along with pressure from ESG programs and those kind of things, into instituting DEI programs, either as a, quote unquote, good faith initiative. We're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to be on the right side of history. But more often than not, they're doing it for PR purposes only, and because it's really a requirement now to receive any kind of backing from financial institutions and even some governmental institutions. If you don't have a DEI program, you lack a halo around your corporate head. So sometimes these things are compulsory, because either you have it or you don't. And if you don't, you're at a disadvantage. So you implement something that is called a DEI program, and you sort of buy into it because, that's the peer pressure. But at the same time, by doing so, you're putting your company under inherent legal risk, as far as I can tell. And so, yeah, virtue has won out over reason, and now the chickens are coming home to roost.
But now we're seeing that it can really go the other way, right? I mean, we saw that paradigm blow up in the recent backlash against Budweiser trying to support LGBTQ people by, using Dylan Mulvaney. And
No. Budweiser shot themselves in the foot by insulting and abandoning their core consumer base. That's what they did. The Dylan Mulvaney deal was just the outgrowth of that philosophy. Okay, Dylan Mulvaney was just a spokesperson paid to pitch a product. It had nothing to do with Dylan Mulvaney. That was just the symbol of the direction Bud Light decided to take with its consumer base. Okay, that's what it was. And if you listen to the marketing executive who was in charge of that entire thing on that Zoom call she did, where she stated what she thought of the main consumer base of that product, yeah, that's what was being rebelled against more than anything else. But everybody wants to focus on Dylan Mulvaney as though Dylan Mulvaney was the cause. No. Dylan Mulvaney was a spokesperson. Dylan Mulvaney was just representing the outlook, the philosophy, and the opinion of the people in charge of that product and its marketing. But I don't think I digress, but I get distracted.
And then they just lost the whole store. It kind of just blew up on them. And so I think as we look at these racial metrics that companies have been using, trying to please everyone, I think there's also some real questions about these lawsuits that are coming and how all of this affects shareholders, because the real, again, old-fashioned thinking here, but, the real responsibility, especially for these large corporations, is to protect shareholder value.
Okay, wait. You say racial metrics as though those aren't quotas, as those aren't targets. Okay, you say quotas are bad, but they're trying to hit these racial metrics. Racial metrics. How else is if you're following along with racial metrics and reporting those as either accomplishments or not, how are those not quotas? How is that not inherently a violation of federal law, Title VII and otherwise? Come on. Funtime Bats, thanks so much. Ayo, sorry I'm late. Night working. Well, you're not late because I didn't really schedule this. And you don't have to apologize because there's nothing to apologize for. And also, if you're working tonight, I hope we keep you company while you're busy. So distract you while you're working. Because, working late at night, that's no fun. Let's see. Did I miss anybody else? Brittany Holland, good evening. Robert Pincus, good evening. I'm scrolling up a bit to see if I missed anybody. And Tony Giff, good evening. And if I missed you and saying a good evening and having you up on the screen for a second, bug me and let me know because, chat goes by. Anyway, let's back up a little bit about racial metrics again.
Responsibility, especially for these large corporations, is to protect shareholder value.
But part of the legal analysis depends, it seems to me, on how these programs function in reality.
Yes.
So one thing that it sticks out in this letter from the Democratic AGs is they talk about aspirational diversity goals in hiring, which they say are not hiring quotas.
Aspirational diversity goals, but they're not quotas. Okay. Speakers on this podcast, please acknowledge the, and I'm being generous here, the splitting of hairs, but more so the 6 of one thing, half a dozen of the other problem with that.
Which they say are not hiring quotas, which are unlawful under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. And Alicia, maybe it depends on whether in reality these goals that are being set by companies actually function as aspirational goals or whether they are really intended to be policy levers in the hiring process.
Of course, they're policy levers in the hiring process. How do you set an aspirational goal based on a racial demographic without it being a quota? Right? Aspirational goal. Come on, guys.
And that would be a fact-bound question that could depend on company to company.
No. Okay. Well, okay. It will be a question company to company because it's all how they stated it publicly. Now, I have, and most of you in the chat have seen along with me, countless examples of company executives from different areas of the world citing exact percentage goals. 25 by 2025, or we want to have this percentage of our executive team be of diverse candidates by blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Okay. So it's not a question whether or not companies have used quotas and have stated that they have quotas and goals based on racial percentages. It's no doubt. I think now they're trying to make up for lost time and trying to give cover to themselves by aspirational diversity goals. I can't say that I've ever heard that phrase before. And if I have, it's been so rare that it's escaped my memory. And I've watched and read a lot of stuff on DEI programs. They haven't called them aspirational. They are trying to muddy the waters. And here's the thing. I think that's quite telling. If these attorneys general are now trying to massage the language around this on behalf of the corporations to try to make it less feeling like a quota and more just like an abstract idea, I think they know the danger these companies are in. I think they are well aware. And the problem for these companies is their policies, initiatives, and the statements of their own executives are well documented at this point. Well documented. They might be trying to scramble now to change their ways after affirmative action was shot down, but there's years and years of ditch digging for themselves they've done.
But it does raise the question of if you are sitting in the CEO's chair, what are you supposed to do here? You're running a Fortune 100. You have a lot of employees and stakeholders. You have a letter from Republican AGs on your desk. You have a letter from Democratic AGs on your desk. Mm-hmm. And Alicia, one example that might be useful to talk about is Microsoft. I know you've looked at some of the targets that they've put in place. How do those seem to function?
Yes. Tell us about Microsoft. Also, you might want to look at Facebook and Starbucks and Accenture and Allstate. And, who else is a good one? PricewaterhouseCoopers. And who else have I looked at in the past? Oh, boy. Citibank. Yeah, Citibank's a good one too. So yeah, I just saying, there's some other companies out there you might want to take a look at their statements publicly, even before Congress. Sometimes just take a look.
So what's interesting about Microsoft is that, like a lot of the companies that came out with a diversity pledge soon after George Floyd's death.
Yes, like so many other companies did.
And part of the purpose of this diversity pledge was really, political protection, and to show that it's doing something about the social injustice and inequality.
Yes, because Microsoft making a company pledge about its employment practices does what regarding police activity in Minneapolis?
So it pledged to increase its Black-owned U.S. partners by 20% over 30 years.
Is that not a quota? Come on, guys. Come on. Don't play like that isn't a quota.
And double the number of Black managers and senior leaders.
And that's not a quota?
In its U.S. offices by 2025.
Yeah, 2025 by 2020. Yeah, and
again, a lot of companies made similar pledges, fiddle around with the numbers, but they would actually put some kind of target, or would you describe it as aspirational goals?
But it is, in fact, in all senses of the word, a quota. Yes,
for different kinds of, or different races or ethnicities in both their workforces and contracting partners, and that's really their contractors. And what was interesting was Microsoft was also under investigation at this point and had received a complaint by the Department of Labor's Federal Contracting Office.
Wait. Some entity in the federal government filed a complaint against a company over a DEI initiative? What? This actually happened? I'm glad. I can't wait to hear what the outcome was. Thank you, Kildrig, so much. One of the most important rules of committing crime is to never write down your crimes. Unfortunately, for many companies, they've recorded this particular crime with braggadocious glee. You are not kidding. You are not kidding. And here's the thing. I would wager, I'll bet the farm, like I said last night, I don't have a farm, so I'm not losing anything, but I would bet the farm that the DEI explosion, let's say, or proliferation over the last 5 or 6 years specifically, especially at least in the time that I've been watching it, might be on par with the greatest exercise in moral hazard that we've ever seen. Now, what is moral hazard? Generally speaking, classically speaking, moral hazard refers to a financial situation. So like what we saw with the banks in the 2008 crash. But in simplified terms, what it is that if someone does a bad thing and you do not punish someone for that bad thing, there is no disincentive for them not to continue doing that bad thing. If no consequences befall someone doing something that is either illegal or inappropriate or whatever else, then there's nothing but a sense of freedom to continue doing it. And since DEI programs in aggregate have received so little attention to this point, particularly legal attention, because of the obvious risks those programs have at putting businesses under the crosshairs of Title VII, they just kept doing it. And you can see this, and I've talked about this countless times before. The change and the evolution in language in talking about DEI programs from the time my channel started up through now has been notable. Early on, I remember one of my earliest videos on the subject was the chief diversity officer from eBay. And when he started talking about the goals of their D&I program, this is before the E was added, he used a lot of words ahead of ever mentioning race or gender or anything. He talked about backgrounds and perspectives and experiences and so on. Like he was just kind of just tiptoeing his way towards the really iffy stuff. And kind of showed there was in my mind, I sensed a certain amount of hesitation in a lot of those early videos and early presentations to really talk about what the real goals were. Because even then, I think they knew they were treading on some thin ice. But then, as the months and years passed, that hesitancy faded fairly quickly. And then you got into people talking very bluntly about what they meant, what their goals were, how they assessed people, and so on. The first video that I saw that did that, and I remarked on it at the time in the video because it was such a departure from what I'd heard previously, is, I believe it's called Unfiltered Diversity or something like that. And it was a presentation put on by an executive from the company, Accenture. And as far as I can tell, he was giving this presentation in a country that was not America because he was, it seemed to be pointedly avoiding using any kind of colloquialisms or lingo or anything. And also some of the names he mentioned sort of indicated this was done in a different country. And he said in no uncertain terms, he told you up front, what does diversity mean? What does it not mean? And he also said what the goals were for the company. And he gave percentages. Percentages handed down, he said, from the CEO. So, and from that point forward, I started noticing a lot more bluntness and a lot less fear into saying exactly what they meant to say and what their goals were. And so, yes, the longer it goes on without consequence, the braver people become. And seriously, guy, I'm talking to the podcast people now. These are not quotas.
Appointment had received a complaint by the Department of Labor's Federal Contracting Office that it was discriminating against Asians, Blacks, and Hispanics.
Yeah.
At different offices, and it was based on a statistical analysis that's known as disparate impact. It looked at the hiring and the share of applicants from these races and the share that they ended up hiring and said, well, there's actually disparities, and this is evidence that you are discriminating against these people of different races, even though the irony, of course, is in some offices, they actually claimed, well, Asians were actually getting an advantage, and in other ones, the Asians were actually being at a disadvantage. So,
well, if you're getting an advantage or a disadvantage based on your race, that's still illegal discrimination. I don't know what to tell you. If you're trying, come on.
So I don't think that's really evidence of systemic discrimination.
You don't think Microsoft sets explicit racial goals by percentages with a timeline to achieve them, and you don't think? Okay, I mean, if you say so. If you say so. Also, Alice Morgan, hello. Did I miss anybody else recently? I don't see them. Okay, so yeah, if I missed you, I'd be happy to say hello and put you on screen for a second.
In fact, I think it's evidence of the contrary. But in any case, Microsoft had this complaint and it actually agreed to settle it rather than continue to fight.
Yeah, so they bought their way out of a problem. For
about $3 million.
Oh, $3 million. What is that, a rounding error on a day's pay at Microsoft? Come on.
In September 2020. And again, there were other big tech companies. Google had gotten slapped with a similar complaint. So had Oracle.
It was Google and Oracle. And how many pittance millions of dollars did they pay?
There's a lady in this Department of Labor in the San Francisco Bureau that was basically going around and tried to stick it to the tech companies. She was later removed by the Trump administration. And a month later, around October 2020, Microsoft was actually received a letter saying, well, now we're investigating whether your diversity pledge is actually illegal.
As it should be, as you've just said. Okay, it seems to me that our speakers here haven't done any kind of in-depth analysis of the trends and the rhetoric coming out of DEI programs for, again, years now. It's like, oh, well, Microsoft said this thing, but it's still kind of a question as to whether or not it's really. Come on, guys.
And so, again, this is a case in point of how companies can get stuck in this, catch-22.
Oh, poor companies. Yeah, are we supposed to be feeling sorry for the companies? They flagrantly violate federal law, discriminate against people in violation of the Civil Rights Act for years and years and years. And now all of a sudden somebody's calling it due. And now, oh, they're in a rock and a hard place in a catch-22. Yeah, well, they put themselves in there with their eyes wide open. And unless they're going to like say, oh, well, our legal department gave us bad advice. Okay, well, the buck stops with you guys anyway. That doesn't protect you from class action lawsuits after the fact. Anna Lynn, hello. Scrappy, hello. If I didn't already say hello, hello.
I actually am of the view that Microsoft's diversity pledge should be illegal under the interpretation of the Students for Fair Admissions.
Whoa. Under the interpretation for Students for Fair Admissions? Wait. That's the affirmative action. Okay.
Both under Title VI to the extent it's a federal contractor and receiving federal money, but also equal protection in Title VII.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I was about to say, if she's just going to say it applies to this but not to that, then okay. All right. Well, let me take a step back. Our speaker, at least, is acknowledging reality. It's just so bizarre that it was such a circuitous route to get there and get to that admission after all this other gobbledygook beforehand. Holy cats, Keeverdam! What are you doing? Thank you so much, Keeverdam. Good evening. And yes, the fundraisers, let me get those up there. I should have had those up myself, but of course, I'm a terrible host. Thank you, Keeverdam. And good evening. I don't know what you're doing up so late. Hope you're not working. If you are, well, we'll try to keep you company. Excuse me. Yes, everybody, at the top of the chat box, if you take a look for a second, we have several fundraisers up there for, let me see if I get all these right because, man, we got a list. So we got, first one is for Maddie. Maddie needs some help with the deductibles in paying for her cancer treatment. She was just recently diagnosed with cancer and just needs a little help to alleviate the stress of that. So if you have a couple of bucks to spare, please think about donating there. As well, Lisa needs some help with paying for medical assistance for her dog, if I can form my words here. Maybe the tiredness is getting at me now. I don't know. As well, we have fundraisers up there for our friends Angry Illinoisian and for Moonshock, both of whom had medical and or life catastrophes befall them. So if you take a look at those, if you can donate, please donate. If you can't donate, that's fine. But if you can share those out on social media, that would also be appreciated. So thank you so much, everybody. All right, let me back up a little bit. Where were we again?
I am of the view that Microsoft's diversity pledge should be illegal under the interpretation of the Students for Fair Admissions, both under Title VI to the extent it's a federal contractor and receiving federal money, but also equal protection in Title VII.
Yeah, and that raises the point about whether these are aspirational goals or not.
Okay, tell me where in the legality of things, if you title something an aspirational goal, but it's still a target, that does not become a quota. I mean, all I have to do to avoid any kind of legal liability with a racial quota is to call it an aspirational goal. Come on.
And Colin, to the point that the argument that Alicia was making, there are neutral ways of trying to increase diversity at companies. If you have historically only recruited from a small set of Ivy League schools, for example, you could say we're going to broaden our pool of applicants.
Yeah, you can have an outreach program that targets for recruitment opportunities people from various demographics. That doesn't violate anything. Because ultimately what happens is, what does your pool of candidates look like after the fact? Now, I would argue that it's might not be illegal, but it also might be slightly unethical if you say have 17 job positions open and you only advertise those at places where specific demographics are likely to be found in order to sort of like stack the deck for the sake of your diversity goals. But ultimately, whoever you hire is whoever you hire. And it really is at the point of decision as to who gets the job that the question becomes, was there anything untoward going on in that process? That's where the gray area is. If you want to do the safest diversity program you can, you put the filtering process way up at the front in the outreach and recruitment area. That's about the safest territory you can go. After that, once you've gotten to the who are we hiring and why, and later on, who are we promoting and why, that's where you don't have a lot of room to maneuver. As far as I know, layman legal here.
By going and doing some heavy recruitment at really good flagship state schools where you're going to get equally smart, talented applicants who may have a different profile, and not even just racial profile, but different socioeconomic profile, different family history, different geographic profile.
Yeah, and that's exactly what the colleges in California are doing and have been doing since affirmative action was shot down in 1996. They've done everything that they can to try to recruit from places where they assume they're going to find people of specific demographics in order to pad their numbers and look real good and be all moral and everything. But at the same time, that also engenders the idea of, oh, well, if we go to this specific zip code, we're likely to find more people of this demographic than if we go to this zip code. Or if we aim for places where the economic situation is X, we're likely to find people that look like this. It just encourages a different kind of racism and stereotyping, but it's legally safer, I suppose,
than your pool beforehand. But the idea that these sorts of targets would be purely aspirational, I find myself pretty skeptical of that, because if you're sitting in the CEO's chair, you're someone who lives and dies by metrics and hitting those metrics. And the idea that they're going to set some sort of aspirational goal and not have real levers they want to pull to try to get there, I'm skeptical of that. And
okay, you don't need to be skeptical, dude. You don't need to be skeptical. Look up DEI promotion or DEI initiative or whatever on YouTube and just set a date range of, say, 2018 through 2020. Okay. And just start listening to the rhetoric from these companies. Listen to what the executives are saying. Listen to the statements they're making, and listen to the goals that they list. Okay. One really good example, and one of my last, well, at least more recent, I guess, scripted videos, was about a very famous law firm called O'Melveny and Myers. And they did a promotional video extolling the virtues of their DEI program. And within the first minute, the CEO or chief director or whatever, the high mucky muck, was talking about how it was all a numbers game. He explicitly said that there were numbers to hit. There was no ambiguity to it. It was right there. That law firm was setting racial quotas. And then you listen to the rhetoric of all the other people they had on that promotional video, and it was clear. You don't have to, this aspirational goal thing, that they just, I swear to God, those Democratic attorneys general just created that out of whole cloth just now. I've never heard that before. I've never heard a DEI executive say, we have an aspirational racial goal or something. Aspirational. They are inserting that at the last second to provide some kind of cover, and it's not going to work.
And then even if they are trying to pull those neutral levers, it does create a situation where they know they're going to be measured by whether they hit that target or not. And boy, that creates a temptation, I think, to take the shortcut of something that would look more like a quota in order to hit the goal that you've already announced that you've set.
Right. I think what we're going to see, to be totally honest about it, is that companies are probably going to keep doing much of what they've been doing, but they're just going to stop talking about it. I mean,
yeah, that is just hide. Just hide. We're gonna lay off all of our chief diversity officers, and we're gonna rename them to global impact specialists, and then hire new people on to do effectively the same thing, and just and not crow about it so much. But again, here's the problem: there is reams and hours of documented evidence and declarations and statements by companies for years. And I don't know what the statute of limitations is on massive racial discrimination in your employment practices, but the clock's still ticking on several of these things, I am sure. And it doesn't take any heavy lifting to find them. I got a whole playlist on my channel, guys. I've been doing this for years. Just search DEI on my YouTube channel, and I bet you I've got plenty of examples that you can draw from if you need to look for material for a lawsuit. I bet you.
I mean, there's going to be massive website scrubbing in terms of all of these metrics that they've previously been advertising.
Oh, don't worry. I've archived plenty of it on my channel over the years.
And I think that's going to play out over the coming months. But, you know, there's something else that I wanted to mention too, Kyle, because if you think about it, in some ways, this comparison between the universities and corporations, in some ways, universities had actually been more reined in by Supreme Court decisions governing affirmative action over the past maybe 10 or 12 years. And corporations actually had a little bit more room to run.
No, they never had room to run. They were always under the cloud of Title VII. They were just never taken to task for it. They were allowed to run away with it. There was no extra legal. Here's the thing. Throughout this entire deal, have we heard them mention any legal precedent or coverage for what corporations have been doing? I mean, the attorneys general said what you're doing is legal. By what justification? I mean, but by what law has what they've been doing has been legal? They haven't mentioned that, have they?
Or they thought they had more room to run in some ways with these ideas, because I think what they really said was what they thought to themselves were all these law firms and all these government contractors, all of them were sort of captured by this idea that this was how we were going to achieve racial equity. So I think the legal advice that many of these corporations were probably getting at the time was all the law firms were basically saying, hey, you know, who's actually going to come after you for trying to achieve these goals, which we now see as a universal good? And
yes, exactly. Exactly. Moral rectitude superseded black letter law. That is what drove this. Some nebulous faith-based initiative of, well, we're doing something good because, see, affirmative action exists, so we're going to use discrimination for good. But it was never legal.
And I think it's really important, too, to note that the Democratic AGs are defending aspirational hiring goals. And I think on one level, on the most basic level, most companies, regardless of their political orientation, aspire for all workplaces to be diverse and for our great American society, to be a place where people of every race and background come and thrive in a meritocracy.
But But what exactly does diversity do? What do DEI programs do? They don't provide equal opportunity.
And thrive in a meritocracy. The question is really now just how we're going to get there.
How we're going to get there? How are we going to get there as far as building a meritocracy? Dispense with evaluating people on non-determinative factors of their merit. But that's not what DEI does. And again, anybody who's been listening to this stuff for more than about 10 minutes over the last several years knows that. And I've pointed out countless times. I didn't listen to this ahead of time, obviously, but man, that was some amazing. I just love the fact that, the admissions that something's wrong here, that these companies are under a legal guillotine after a fashion and always have been. And only now are people paying attention to it. But most of it sounded like they're making apologies for it or trying to sort of step around the idea. And as far as the Democratic AG's letter to the companies and everything, how is it legal? How? I mean, under what precedent is what they're doing totally, absolutely, safely legal? If the AGs are giving all these companies legal advice through this letter, saying you've got nothing to worry about, it's legal, well, how? What absolutely counters Title VII considerations that makes all these programs legal? And if it's not the two precedents that I looked up previously, if it's not Steelworkers v. Weber and Johnson v. Transportation Agency, then what? Because again, it took 7 years near on for me to even hear of those things. And when I read them, didn't really sound like it provided much footage. There wasn't much of a handhold there legally, as far as I can tell, put up against today's modern DEI programs. So if it's not those two, What is it? And if it is those two, tell me how they get around the quota problem. I don't know. Anyway, so there you go. That's the Wall Street Journal giving us their opinion piece on DEI. And again, as disclaimer, I am a total layman, armchair observer of all this stuff. But sometimes I got to say, I feel a little bit like maybe a false expert, but at least somebody that's heard enough of this stuff to know when I'm hearing nonsense, or I'm listening to somebody who hasn't really looked into it as much as they should before making such broad statements like that. Devil Fruit Zero, hello. Did I miss anybody else in the grand scheme of things? Scrolling up. John Miller, hello. And if I hadn't said hello to you so far and put you up on the screen, let me know. But anyway, yeah, here we are. That was that. And this is me. And that's you. And we're just hanging out and shooting the breeze, as it were. Let's see. Urkele de Stefano, I can't think of a more useless waste of money than paying a diversity officer. Well, see, again, having a DEI program is, in a way, a kind of an investment. The question is, does a DEI program in and of itself produce benefits to the company that you can track on the bottom line? Generally speaking, the answer is no. Otherwise, these major corporations would not be cutting the budgets of DEI programs left, right, and center for the last 2 years. I have other theories on why they're doing that, of course, probably in preparation for what they saw the writing on the wall when it came to the affirmative action decision. Because as soon as those lawyers last October started talking about diversity as their main argument for defending affirmative action, and given the balance of the court at the time and now, any lawyer, as far as I can tell with half a brain, could tell if this sucker goes down, we've got no leg to stand on for our DEI program under any other legal theory. So we better start reducing our footprint, both in how much we're spending and also in titles and verbiage and everything else. But yeah, now they're having to. The Wall Street Journal people weren't wrong, as these companies who have doubled down on this stuff over the years are stuck between a rock and a hard place. And that's not a statement of sympathy for the companies, but it's a literal truth. If they keep going, they are digging themselves deeper. If they backtrack, they're making an admission of wrongdoing. Either way, the pathway's open for class action lawsuits, and should always have been. And, it is telling to me that not even the Wall Street Journal, in the course of this opinion piece, reading the article or the letter from the AGs, even offered up a legal theory that made DEI practices okay. The best they could do is say, well, if you focus your DEI stuff in the recruitment/outreach territory, you're not really in trouble. And again, layman here, I can tend to agree with that as far as I understand it. But that says nothing about how anything else used in the office becomes suddenly legal otherwise. But I could go on, but I'd be repeating myself. So how about we move on to something else? What would that something else be? Well, let's see. Let me find that article I was given not too long ago. Okay, by the way, this is a terrible story. Ahead of time before I even say anything about it. And if I were monetizing this stream, which I'm not, I would get demonetized. But let me make sure I got this article up here. Yes. Okay. So I got to change a couple of things here. First off, I have to put up the background, the appropriate background, because I don't actually have an overlay for articles so much, but I do have, well, I can't do that. Hold on. Share screen, this thing. That's what I want. There we go. Is that working okay? All right. And then let's go like this. Aha! Here we go. This is a terrible, terrible story. You want some true crime late at night? You want something absolutely horrific going on? Well, let's go. This comes from the Daily Mail. New York City doctor Ji Allen Chang charged with drugging and I'll be nice to YouTube so I don't get shut down. Taking advantage of women around the world, including in hospitals where he worked, after girlfriend uncovered horror footage. Okay, if this story doesn't end up on the channels of at least 4 or 5 true crime people that I'm either in contact with or know of, I'd be surprised, because this is nuts. This sounds like maybe true red crime territory, or I mean, if enough information comes out, I could see Mr. Black Pasta doing this one. But anyway, a 33-year-old New York City gastroenterologist appeared in court in Queens on Monday, charged with 50 counts of drugging and taking advantage of women around the world, including the hospital where he worked. Authorities said Ji Alan Cheng filmed the attacks on his phone, and in December, a former girlfriend accused him of taking advantage of her after reportedly finding video of herself and other women being attacked. The ex-girlfriend accused Cheng of using a KN95 mask filled with cotton balls soaked in liquid to knock her out. Police began investigating her allegation, and Cheng was arrested and fired from the hospital where he worked, New York Presbyterian, Queens. On Monday, prosecutors alleged he attacked multiple women aged between 19 and 47 at his home in Astoria, at the hospital where he worked, and across New York, Las Vegas, San Francisco, and Thailand. 6 women are said to appear in the videos, but prosecutors believe there may be more. And here's the man of the hour. Hey, Melinda Katz, the Queens District Attorney, urged anyone with potential leads about other victims to come forward, saying the evidence indicated, quote, a sexual predator of the absolute worst kind, a serial taker advantage of her. She said she was prepared to break she said he was prepared to break, quote, every standard of human decency, unquote. Following the alleged December 2022 attack, Cheng's home was raided and police found drugs including fentanyl, ketamine, LSD, and several anesthetics typically used in surgeries, plus devices with dozens of other recordings at his home. The attacks are believed to date back to 2021. In one case, Cheng is accused of filming himself groping a 37-year-old patient as she lay unconscious at the Queens Hospital in 2021. A short time later, prosecutors said he took advantage of a woman whom he met on a dating app and filmed the attack. In the video, a small brown bottle was visible on his bed, according to the authorities, who said they had recovered a similar bottle from his apartment that contained a powerful anesthetic. That same year, he is accused of taking advantage of a 19-year-old girl who went to the hospital the day before she was scheduled to have her gallbladder removed. And by the way, I am couching my language here out of pragmatism, not because I agree with it, but just because I have heard stories recently from especially true crime creators of just saying the wrong word will get your entire, channel struck or some goofy thing like that. So I'm just unfortunately having to play it safe. That's why. Let's see. She said Cheng unexpectedly injected her with a substance that made her fall asleep, and, quote, when she woke up, the doctor was no longer in the room, unquote. She was experiencing, quote, extreme pain to her lower abdomen, unquote. She and her mother both feared she could have been taken advantage of, but she told the social worker specializing in taking advantage of-ing she did not know what happened while she was unconscious. She told hospital authorities and did not accuse him of being taken advantage of, but medical staff took the allegation seriously, checking surveillance camera footage and key card access, and staged a lineup in the hospital where she identified Cheng. Okay, I'll tell you what, that's actually a pretty rare instance where a hospital takes an allegation seriously immediately, because I can't count, and maybe some of you have watched true crime for several years, how many times we've heard about like angels of death in hospitals doing goofy things and people seeing odd behavior, and they just end up shuttling that person off to another hospital or quietly letting them go, but still letting them keep their licenses and all that kind of stuff. So good on the hospital authorities in this instance from actually following up. Nicholas Liakis, if I'm saying that correctly, the teenager's attorney, said the investigation into the incident ground to a halt and he has since filed a civil suit against the hospital. Oh, well, I spoke too soon. I obviously spoke too soon. Well, my praising of the hospital just went sideways. All right. Anyway, that investigation, if you want to call it, hit a dead end, he told NBC4 News. He told the channel the hospital, quote, conspired to cover up her assault. Okay, I really did speak too soon. Boy, I thought I was proven wrong there for a second. Oh, well. Conspired to cover up her assault by failing to tell her what had happened, failing to test or treat her for the illegal and dangerous injection of drugs she had been given, and refusing to call the police. Okay, well, she could have called the police, you know? I'm not blaming the victim. I'm just saying, if you're going to go one step this way, you might as well go all the way and call the police. New York Presbyterian would not comment on the 19-year-old's allegations, but expressed outrage at his alleged behavior. We're outraged. Great, you're outraged. Quote, the crimes committed by this individual are heinous, despicable, you're despicable, and a fundamental betrayal of our mission and our patients' trust. We are appalled, I tell you, and deeply saddened by what these victims and their families have endured. The statement read, well, not to the point of actually following through on your investigation of the accusation from the 19-year-old. Apparently, the hospital said Cheng was fired 6 months ago after New York Presbyterian learned of the criminal taking advantage of indictment. Oh, well, as soon as he was indicted, but an accusation with video evidence and everything else wasn't enough in your own hospital? Okay. Quote, in December 2022, as soon as the district attorney made us aware of allegations against this individual, he was immediately placed off duty, banned from hospital property, and terminated, the hospital said. Well, as long as the district attorney made you aware of the allegations after the 19-year-old made allegations. But anyway, quote, we have been fully cooperating with the Queens District Attorney's Office, the NYPD, and the NYS Department of Health. Cheng's attorney, Jeffrey Einhorn, said on Monday it was too early to comment on the case. Cheng pleaded not guilty and is being held on Rikers Island. Well, there you go. Alleged, all these things are still alleged. Yes, for legal reasons, it is all alleged. But I read the article as it was stated. So there you go. That is a thing that happened. Let's see. I had at least one more story from earlier this week. Oh, wait. How about this one? I got this one. Let's see. Let me do that. I'll get that prepared for a second there. Is that going to work? That might work. No, don't play the video. Don't play the video. Okay. Let me see. You guys got anything to say about that one? Where's Ray Finkel? I don't know. Finkel, Einhorn. Finkel is Einhorn. Einhorn is Finkel. I know. It's a crazy world we live in. Faithless. Their lack of response should make them complicit. You would think. I mean, you've got those. I don't know if it's actually called that, but like the Kitty Genovese law or something like that. Isn't there something in New York specifically based around what is ultimately more an urban legend than an actual story of fact, but all the same, where you're a bystander and you just sit there and watch something terrible happen and do nothing. Isn't there something about that somewhere? And besides which, doesn't the hospital have I mean, they're going to be liable for a giant lawsuit. I bet you. Dollars to donuts. If this guy's convicted and they have to go to the hospital for evidence to include the 19-year-old's accusations, the hospital's, they're in trouble. I gotta think they're in trouble. But I guess we will see. Let's move on to a different article. Got to stop this one and then present this one. Okay, is this coming up? Let me check this. Yeah, let me zoom in a smidge or three. Nope, not that one. That's the tab I want. There we go. Is that enough? That'll work. Okay, Spanish film star's son accused of killing dismembering man in Thailand. Daniel Sancho Branchalo, the son of Rodolfo Sancho Aguirre, I'm probably mispronouncing that as well, and Sylvia Branchalo, allegedly confessed to the grisly crime. I don't know that I'm aware of actor Branchalo. But okay. The son of 2 Spanish film stars reportedly has been arrested in Thailand after allegedly murdering and dismembering a man whose body parts were found scattered around a tourist island known for its dance parties. Daniel Sancho Branchalo, the son of was taken into custody Monday after allegedly confessing to the grisly crime on the island of Koh Phangan, if I'm saying that correctly, citing local police. Sancho, a 29-year-old chef with a YouTube channel, well, he put his chef skills to work, I guess, in dressing his victim, allegedly led police to various sites on the island to recover bagged pieces of a Colombian surgeon, Edwin Arrieta Artetaga, 44, which were confirmed through DNA testing, police said. Sancho initially reported Arrieta as missing to police late last week, as the BBC said, also citing local media. His missing person report was made shortly after trash collectors reported finding human remains on the island, which is known for its monthly full moon party. I'm assuming the full moon party is not there to celebrate the film series, The Puppet Master and Doll Man, but you never know. Surveillance footage taken on Wednesday appeared to capture the pair riding a motorcycle together one day before the body parts were discovered. Sancho was also seen buying a knife, plastic bags, and cleansing fluid, local broadcaster Thai PBS reported. The Bangkok Post, citing local police, reported that Sancho and Arrieta had been in a year-long romantic relationship and that the killing followed an argument between the pair in a hotel room. According to a police source, Sancho said he punched Arrieta, causing him to hit his head on a bathtub and lose consciousness. Oh, yes, he fell down and hit his head. Oh, that old canard. Don't we love that one? And once he fell down and hit his head, I didn't know what to do, so I just, dismembered him. I didn't call the police. I didn't report it as an accident. And the healthy thing seemed to be at that point, I might as well just dispose of the body in a completely grisly and horrific way and try to get away with it. Yeah, it's okay. Sancho said he then dismembered the body to get rid of it, the source reportedly said. Surat Thani Provincial Police Commander Saranyu Chamnanrat, I'm probably mispronouncing that as well, told the Associated Press that the killing was likely due to a personal relationship between the pair, though he declined to elaborate. Colombia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs confirmed in a statement Sunday that an investigation in Arrieta's death is underway. Well, there you are. There's that. Son of privilege. Somebody falls down, bonks their head. Your obvious and most healthy reaction is dismemberment, as we know. All right, and how about one more? One more for the road. Because if we wanted some more horror stories, and I swear some of these will soon be true crime videos on various channels, if they're not already. Let's see. This is the one that happened just a few days ago, and this is supervillain territory. This really is supervillain territory. FBI looks for more possible victims after woman escapes from cinder block cell in Oregon. And you can apparently kind of see the room that they found this lady in. Here we go. Portland, Oregon. A man who posed as an undercover police officer kidnapped a woman in Seattle, drove her hundreds of miles to his home in Oregon, and locked her in a cinder block cell until she bloodied her hands, breaking the door to escape, the FBI said Wednesday. Oh, boy. Nagasi Zuberi, 29, faces federal charges that include interstate kidnapping, and authorities said they're looking for additional victims after linking him to violent take advantage assaults in at least 4 more states. Quote, this woman was kidnapped, chained, assaulted, and locked in a cinder block cell, said Stephanie Shark, the assistant special agent in charge of FBI's Portland field office. Stephanie Shark. Did I read this already somewhere? I feel like I did, because I feel like I said something like Stephanie Shark is the coolest name for a special agent. Agent Shark. Okay. Quote, police say he beat Police say she beat the door with her hands until they were bloody in order to try to break free. Her quick thinking and will to survive may have saved other women from a similar nightmare. After the woman escaped from his home. After the woman escaped from his home in Klamath Falls, Zuberi fled the southern Oregon city of roughly 22,000 people, but was arrested by state police in Reno, Nevada the next afternoon, the FBI said. Court records don't list an attorney who might speak on Zuberi's behalf. He hasn't been assigned a public defender in Oregon yet, as he's still being transferred from Nevada, which can take several weeks, said Kevin Sonoff, a spokesman for the U.S. Attorney's Office in Oregon. Why? Just put him in a plane or, Con Air. Just weeks? Okay. A grand jury in Portland on Wednesday returned an indictment charging Zuberi with interstate kidnapping and transporting an individual across state lines with intent to engage in criminal taking advantage of. He could face up to life in prison if convicted. I would hope so. According to the FBI, Zuberi also went by the names Sakima, Justin Heish, and Justin Kouassi, and has lived in multiple states since 2016, possibly including California, Washington, Oregon, Colorado, Utah, Florida, New York, New Jersey, Alabama, Nevada, and a partridge in a pear tree. If this guy built a cinder block cell in his basement at his house in Oregon, this was not this guy's first rodeo. And if he's been living in different states for the last, 7 years now nearly? Oh, man, this was not his first try. Oh, this reminds me of like Israel Keys a little bit. Oh, man. According to a criminal complaint filed in U.S. District Court in Oregon, Zuberi solicited the woman, identified only as adult victim 1, in the early morning hours of July 15th to engage in prostitution along Aurora Avenue in Seattle, an area known for sex work. Afterwards, Zuberi told the woman he was an undercover officer, showed her a badge, pointed a stun gun at her, and placed her in handcuffs and leg irons before putting her in the back of his vehicle, the complaint says. He then drove the woman to his home in Oregon, stopping along the way to take advantage of her, the complaint states. When they arrived about 7 hours after he first encountered her in Seattle, he put her in a makeshift cell. Sally sells seashells by the seashore. He had built in his garage a cinder block cell with a door of metal bars and said he was leaving to do paperwork. The woman, quote, briefly slept and awoke to the realization that she would likely die if she did not attempt to escape, the complaint says. She started punching the metal door and broke some of its welded joints. I mean, good on this lady, but dang. Creating a small opening which she climbed through, Klamath Falls Police Captain Rob Reynolds said in a news conference, quote, when she was trying to escape the cell itself, she repeatedly punched the door with her own hands, Reynolds said. She had several lacerations along her knuckles. I can believe it. She punched out a metal bar door. Good gravy. The victim saw Zuberi's vehicle parked in the garage, opened it, grabbed his gun, and then took off, leaving blood on a wooden fence she climbed over to escape. She flagged down a passing driver who called 911. This lady is a freaking hero. Good gravy. Jeez. 2 Nevada State Patrol officers tracked Zuberi down at a Walmart parking lot in Reno the next day, July 16th, the complaint says. How'd they do that, I wonder? He was in his car holding one of his children. Wait, what? He was in his car holding one of his children in the front seat while talking to his wife, who was standing outside the vehicle. He initially refused to get out of the car when the officers asked and instead cut himself with a sharp object and tried to destroy his phone, according to the complaint, which notes that Zuberi eventually surrendered and that the child wasn't harmed. Holy, what the hell? Pardon me a sec. I need to wet my whistle, as it were. According to the complaint, investigators interviewed Zuberi's wife and neighbors. Authorities declined to say if there was any indication that any of them had been aware of the Seattle woman's abduction. Investigators said that when they searched Zuberi's home and garage, they found the makeshift cell, the woman's purse, and handwritten notes. One of the notes was titled, quote, Operation Takeover, unquote, and included a bullet list with entries that read, quote, leave phone at home and make sure they don't have a bunch of people in their life. You don't want any type of investigation, unquote. Well, I mean, I love a criminal that leaves a handbook for themselves for the police to find. This reminds me of that. What was his first name? Mark Twitchell. I think it was Mark Twitchell, the guy who tried to imitate Dexter up in Canada, I think it was, and he left like this entire self-made guide of how to do a crime and get away with it. Or even Joel Guy Jr., who had a notebook filled with reminders and notes and tips on how to get rid of his parents. Another handwritten document appeared to include a rough sketch for an underground structure using concrete blocks, foam insulation, and waterproof concrete. Let's all be thankful that this guy was a terrible handyman, a terrible welder. The FBI said Zuberi may have used other methods of gaining control of women, including drugging their drinks. The agency said it was setting up a website to asking anyone who believes they may have been a victim to come forward. The Klamath Falls rental home. Every time I see Klamath Falls, I think of like Fallout 2. Wasn't Klamath like an area in Fallout 2? The Klamath Falls rental home where Zuberi allegedly took the woman is owned by the... Wait, what? Let me start over. The Klamath Falls rental home, where Zuberi allegedly took the woman, is owned by the city's mayor, Carol Westfall, and her husband, Kevin, according to property records. The house backs onto a park and is on a residential street less than a quarter mile or a half a kilometer from a highway. The city's mayor was this guy's landlord? Court records show that after Zuberi's arrest, the couple had him evicted. You don't say. Quote, we are shocked and dismayed by what has occurred. Okay, I'm laughing. Obviously, I don't expect these guys to have known what was going on the property necessarily if they're just renting the house out. But still, that is a small world detail. What can I tell you? We are shocked and dismayed by what has occurred, the Westfall said in an email. We applaud the actions of the woman who helped capture this person and prevent him from committing further atrocities. The Westfalls also praised local, state, and federal law enforcement for their work on the case. They declined to respond to queries about their interactions with Zuberi. Holy cats. Yeah, this is prime true crime channel fodder right here. Right, even before the prosecution and everything, I could see that chapter doing this sucker tomorrow as a preparatory video ahead of any further legal action. That's good gravy. Thank you, Keldrig. Come on, people, don't record your crimes. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad he did, but wow, what a moron. Well, I mean, let's all praise dumb criminals, at least for that much. Wow, that is a wow. That is, in fact, I believe...
Wowie fucking wow wow.
Yeah, that is a wowie wow wow. In fact, how about
Wowie! Wow! Wow!
how about a couple more?
Wowie wow wow.
How about a...
Wowie wow wow.
And just to top it all off...
Wowie wow wow.
That one always gets me. It's like that last little lilt in his voice like directly hits my funny bone. It really...
Wowie wow wow.
Oh, my heart. All right. Well, with that, everybody, I'm coming up on... Wow, that's another wowie wow wow. How about one more wowie wow wow?
Wowie wow wow.
Okay, well, there you go. We are at just about, in a few seconds here, an hour and a half on the button, so good as time as any to wrap things up because I should probably get to bed. Why am I going to bed so early compared to a lot of people? Well, because I get up at 4 a.m. for work every day, so my body's telling me, you need to go to sleep now. So there we go. Ebony Williams, Scribe, you have a great villain laugh. Not sure how to wait. That sounded villainous. Really? That was my laugh of joy. I'm so happy I do the laugh of joy. Die, 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 die. Hey, 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 hey. Well, anyway, apparently, everybody thinks me a villain when I'm having fun. It probably says something about me somewhere in the deep, dark recesses of my psychology, but that's a topic for another time. Everybody, I'm going to call it here because why not? After a story like that, might as well. Can't do much worse than that. Programming note, Sunday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern will be the Sunday stream, where I'll talk about a thing and a stuff. I don't know yet. Haven't decided, but we'll see. Beyond that, next Thursday, per usual, at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, will be another TED Excellence. And somewhere in between, maybe kind of sort of depending on scheduling, there may be a Living on Borrowed Crime soon. I can't tell you when for sure or who, but I promise I'm doing my best. I really am. It's just like, the real world scheduling, time zones, personal foibles, everything. It's an issue. It's an issue I'm trying to solve bit by bit, day by day. Everybody, thank you so much for coming out and joining me this evening. Hope you enjoyed what I had to offer for the sake of entertainment and time's a wasting. If you like this kind of thing, leave a like. I hear that does me some kind of good in the algorithm. Otherwise, also leave a comment. And also be sure to check again, top of the chat box, at those fundraisers. And speaking of which, moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things. Even though everyone here is so well behaved, you have very little to do. Everybody who donated, either to myself or to the fundraisers at the top of the chat box, thank you guys so much for your generosity. Really do appreciate it. Hope you all have a good rest of your evening. Hope you get good sleep tonight. I hope you have a good Saturday ahead of you and a good weekend in general. I hope you're all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.